Good afternoon, everyone. It is December the 13th, the very last meeting of council for this year, 2021, and I want to welcome everyone to this afternoon's proceedings. It's great to see folks taking part in the business of our municipality. It is a pleasure to see you all on this beautiful sunny day. So thanks to everyone who has turned out, and welcome to all of our participants, council and staff, and our people who are watching us on over the internet as well. Welcome to all. Note that we have full council here with us this afternoon, and so with that, I will call this meeting to order. And we will begin with the land acknowledgement with Councillor Kentner. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. We would like to begin by acknowledging that we are meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which includes the Chippewas of Nawash Unceded First Nation and the Chippewas of Saugeen First Nation. We also recognize the Métis, whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. We extend our gratitude to all Anishinaabe and Métis peoples and their descendants, past, present, and future, who continue to care for and inhabit these lands and tend these waters.
Thank you, Councillor Kentner. And with that, I will ask you all to join us in a moment of reflection as we consider the business before us today. Thank you. Is there any disclosure of interest, pecuniary or otherwise, on any of the agenda items today? And seeing none, you can announce it at the time should one arise. And this brings us down to announcements. And I'm going to kick off this afternoon with a special presentation.
Sorry, ma'am.
And I will ask Brian Rankin to join me up here. Brian, be on the spotlight with me. This is a very special time in our announcements that we take the opportunity to rescue. I'm not rescuing you, I'm honoring you. Volunteers who have done such a remarkable job throughout many, many years for our municipality. This is the lifeblood of our municipality. We recognize the volunteers in our community. We have so many of them in many, many different walks of life, but it is always a treat when we have a special recognition. And today, Brian, it's you. I want to thank you so much for all of the efforts that you have put forward, particularly with the Meaford Hospital Foundation, and particularly with the walk run, 5-kilometer walk and run. You took over this, I understand, in 1996, so it's been quite a time, and I'm sure a learning curve all the way along, but it's been such a community developer. It really has brought the community together. You've had over 500 participants, growing up to 500 participants over the years, raising $750,000 with this particular event, which has all contributed to our hospital and the much needed equipment that we need to keep our folks healthy. I just want to reiterate that you are a dedicated volunteer, a community builder, and a skilled fundraiser. And we are so proud of all the work that you have done. And thank you immensely for that. And on behalf of our council and the municipality, we have a certificate from the Corporation of the Municipality of Meaford presented to Brian Rankin, dedicated chair and race director for the Meaford Harbor Run Walk. We recognize the incredible efforts in community building and fundraising on behalf of the municipality of Meaford and the Meaford Hospital Foundation. Thank you sincerely for your passion, your dedication, and your love of Meaford for the past 25 years, and for creating and leading an incredible community event for all to enjoy for years to come. We welcome this recognition of our motto, our heritage, our future. Thank you so much, Brian, for all you've done for us. And with that, I will open it up for announcements from anyone on council. Deputy Mayor or Councillor Greenfield, you want to go first this time?
Okay, thank you very much, Your Worship. A partially unofficial announcement, but I did want to bring forward from the Meaford Public Library from Councillor Kentner and myself, the good news that the Meaford Public Library in January will be opening on Sunday. That's been a long-awaited arrival. The final date is not exactly set yet, and the hours are not exactly set, but it is imminent that the library will be open for service in January for all the municipality coming just in a few weeks.
Good news. Thanks for that. And Deputy Mayor?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to acknowledge the Fort County Labor Market Planning Board report that was printed in the last edition of the Meaford Independent, but it did speak to the four counties being Grey, Bruce, Huron, and Perth still having the lowest unemployment rate in Ontario at 2.8%. So I just thought if anyone happened to be listening who was potentially looking for work, I would suggest that they look at the Connect to Jobs website that is operated by the Fort County Planning Board, and there are over 2,200 positions listed. But I think this information really reinforces the priority of Grey County and also of our own council to focus on securing affordable housing. So it just is an important number to keep in our minds. Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Anyone else? Then I'll carry on with my list. And I want to begin by thanking everyone who participated, particularly who organized our wonderful the Santa Claus parade and the tree lighting ceremony that took part recently. It was a wonderful night, had the snowfall at appropriate time, and brought folks out after a long drought of being together, and it was a great success. So thanks to all of those who had a hand in planning and organizing and walking in the parade. I really appreciate the time and effort that has been put on this. The Meaford Farmers Market continues on the 18th from 11 to 4 p.m. at the Meaford and St. Vincent Community Center. And also just want to, in conjunction with the Santa Claus Parade and the festivities of the tree lighting, that the window display competition hosted by the Meaford Bay IA and the Chamber of Commerce had two big winners. And I want to congratulate the Meaford Refillery and Light 99.3 for their efforts in lightening up the downtown area with their Christmas windows. At holiday time, this, as I've mentioned, this is the last meeting of council for 2021, and the municipal office at Trowbridge Street will be closed for the winter break at noon on December the 24th, and will return to regular hours on January the 4th. And in the shortly following that, we will be having our usual meet and greet, mayor's levy, if you will, at the community center, specifically the arena. Again, another family skating party. We hope everyone will come out with their kids. There'll be free public skating at that time. And of course, hot chocolate and goodies to go along with it. We certainly welcome everyone to come out, and council will be there to meet and greet everyone. And we hope that you'll come out and wish us everyone a very happy new year at that time. We've instituted something new this time for folks who can't join us physically and want to continue on with over Facebook. We'll be having a chat, giving them a chance to say hi and ask a question, and hopefully we'll have an answer for them, but certainly welcome participation virtually and in person. Just one last one, and that is that we have a COVID-19 vaccine clinic at the Meaford and St. Vincent Community Center on Thursday, December the 16th from 12 to 5 p.m. Those who are looking for a third dose and those 5 to 11 years of age do need an appointment for that. But first and second doses for all individuals 12 and over can be had as a walk-in. And with that, again, I'll ask if there's reminded anyone of an announcement. And seeing none, we will then move on to our public participation. This is a part of the agenda that we look forward to when the public has an opportunity to make a presentation to council on a topic of their choice. Whether you can, those folks that are doing presentations have 10 minutes to present to council. Then you could also do a deputation on an item that is currently on the agenda, and those folks will have 5 minutes for that presentation. And we do entertain public questions as well. We have 3 presentations this afternoon, and I welcome Lynda Stevens, who is our first one and will be speaking to us about our Beautiful Joe Heritage Society, specifically the Community Bursary Program. Welcome, Lynda. Please feel free, if you're comfortable, take your mask off.
Is this working?
Yes, it is.
Great. Thank you, Your Worship, Council and staff and the public. So thank you for this opportunity to come before you, to thank you for the financial assistance that you've provided over the last couple of years. The grant money was allotted, the grant money allotted has allowed us to update and to revitalize our website. We're very proud of it, and we hope you'll check it out at beautifuljoe.org. I must say that your decision, this is my personal comment, that your decision to use a multi-year program for these grants, especially during the last 2 years, has been very beneficial to the organizations that you chose. It has given them a sense of security and financial security, and to keep the organizations functioning. So I really appreciate that. Beautiful Joe Heritage Society, as you know, is a twofold purpose. The first is to promote the story of Beautiful Joe and Margaret Marshall Saunders, who's the author of the book. Over the last couple of years, her timeless theme of kindness has been very important to all of us. The second part of our purpose is to promote Beautiful Joe Park, where Canada's most favorite dog, or famous dog, sorry, is laid to rest. We are also stewards of the park, and we celebrate the animal-human bond. Tourism is our main focus when it comes to the park and these stories. Our Vice Chair, Sharon Manchin, has a background in marketing, and we have benefited greatly from her expertise. I had to mention that. Obviously, international visitors are staying home, and they have been replaced, though, by a large number of local interest in their own backyards, and specifically Beautiful Joe. People have come from Ottawa to Windsor, Toronto to Sault Ste. Marie, and also Quebec. So we've been discovered. Lots of visitors, new locals, and many apologetic residents from Meaford, Grey County, and surrounding areas. More visitors are valuing and exploring their Canadian heritage in the last couple of years. Our personal tours, group tours, and sunny Sunday tours in July and August has brought a keen interest to Beautiful Joe, his story, as well as, excuse me, as well as the picturesque Meaford area in general. Yes, we have a story to tell. For a little abused dog rescued in Meaford over 127 years ago, there is renewed interest in his story that was once an internationally famous one. The plaque sales at Paradise Island has increased over 200% in the last 10 months. We have pets remembered from all over North America, including 5 provinces, 1 territory, and 9 states. Unfortunately, we do have some plaques that don't indicate a location. And we have 1,100 Facebook followers. Our MailChimp newsletter subscribers are now over 700. And although we're new to Instagram, we have already 400 followers. Beautiful Joe Park is a little difficult to find, and it always amazes us when someone discovers it. Because the park is not accessible, it makes it challenging for cars pulling trailers or extra large vehicles, and of course, buses. Yes, they can make it down the driveway, but getting up is very, very dangerous. unsafe and scary. Many times, if we're in the park already, we stand at the top of the driveway with our safety vests on to stop traffic to allow the vehicles to depart safely. Because usually a running approach is a good idea at the top of that hill. And yes, I'm going to take this opportunity to push for an accessible pedestrian footbridge across the river from Legion Park to join Beautiful Joe Park. Beautiful Joe Heritage Society did provide in 2011 an accessibility study that indicated that a footbridge will provide easy, safe access for locals as well as tourists. So where do we stand right now? Well, right now you have a proposed bridge in your plan for Legion Park already. But here is where we stand officially. We have $20,000 in a targeted bridge fund account from donors across North America. This money was donated for the bridge without any focused participation or promotion. Over 200 people have enjoyed Beautiful Joe Park this summer. All have recognized the need for a footbridge across the river to join the two parks. This accommodates a safe, level access for those on mobility devices and people from vehicles, including tour buses, that would like to enjoy the unique park. When you give us the go-ahead, Beautiful Joe Heritage Society will move into a full-blown focused fundraising mode for the accessibility pedestrian footbridge. Our new website enables us to do that, and we thank you for that. Our board jokes about this all the time, saying that we would like to experience a bridge before we're unable to use it, or worse, dead. I wonder if you really realize the value of this gem that you own. We hear this from total strangers all the time, whether it's the story of Beautiful Joe or Beautiful Joe himself, the history of Margaret Marshall Saunders, celebration of the animal-human bond through the monuments, or just the nature and peaceful beauty of the park. The park is loved by everyone that comes there. We would encourage you to take a tour with us in the spring, either individually or as a group. And please check us out at beautifuljoe.org, which the website was just launched on Friday. So thanks for your support, and we hope to see you at the park.
Thank you, Lynda. Thank you so much for all that you've done for Beautiful Joe. You and Sharon have been the spearhead here on this for many, many years, and we really, really appreciate all of your hard work. And I note, certainly with interest, your specific reference to accessibility and how important that is, being on our accessibility advisory committee, for which we thank you as well. It is truly a national treasure, and we are very, very much aware of the value that it has to our community and to our visitors who come in and enjoy the park. So on everyone's behalf, thank you so much for what you do and what you're able to do with the bursary that we're happy to provide. Thank you. Comments? Our second presenter is Tom Buck and Joseph Leung with Save Georgian Bay. And we welcome you to come to the podium, or to the microphone. Again, if you feel comfortable, please, you can take your masks off.
Can I move this?
Over? Sure.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Thank
Welcome.
you. Good afternoon. Thank you, Your Worship and council members, for the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm Tom Buck, one of the directors of Save Georgian Bay, and also president of the Sunnyside Beach Association. With me today is Joseph Leung of Save Georgian Bay as well. Our group formed in the summer and fall of 2019. Our mission at Save Georgian Bay is to inform Canadians who live near and love Georgian Bay of the proposal for a large hydro project in Meaford, which will harm land, water, flora, fauna, fish, and residents around and in this present precious bay. I had a wonderful experience this morning, sitting on the shore of Georgian Bay at my home, a few miles that way, watching the sunrise as it came up behind the slope of Blue Mountain. For a moment, it looked like an eye opening on the day. The water was lapping quite calmly on the shore, a beautiful sound. I looked across that pristine blue water. You could see Christian Island. Certainly, for me, a wonderful beginning of the day. Yesterday, I and my brother were standing in the same spot. We saw an eagle traversing in circles from south to north, scanning the shore. This morning, as I thought about coming here to talk with you, I found myself wondering why anyone would mess with such perfection. Admittedly, I'm not a person who looks at the bay with industrial purpose in mind, nor do I take this environment for granted, and I hope I never do. Save Georgian Bay has studied this proposal and visited the example project that TCE identified to us in 2019, the Ludington, Michigan plant. We have provided or participated in over 24 community conversation meetings, public meetings, or presentations, educating the public about the hazards of the project. We established a website and a Facebook page, providing information, posts, and updates. Save Georgian Bay produced an 80-page strategic environment assessment, which was provided to the DND and to Meaford Council. The report is available on our website. Save Georgian Bay contributed to a one-year delay in the closing of the DND comment period and further delays in the DND decision-making process, and our concerns contributed to design changes for the project. Save Georgian Bay members have participated in creating articles and publications to expand awareness on the hazards of the project. We've gathered 3,300 personal signatures on petitions of people opposed to the project and over 40,000 online signatures from people opposing the project. Our concerns. The Ludington plant, which I have visited, kills millions of fish every year. Even with the enhanced design features here, the Meaford plant will kill and disturb a significant fish population. Land for the 400-acre reservoir will be clear-cut, eliminating habitats of animals, plants, and birds in the area, some of which are protected species. Construction will cause disruption and pollution in the region for 4+ years, changing the character of water, land, air, light, and sound. The escarpment will be excavated in millions of tons of concrete, and a dam to hold back 23 million cubic meters of water will be installed on top of it. No other project is constructing a dam over the heads of 1,000 souls in North America today. For any dam which is broken or required evacuation in recent years, every builder of those dams claimed it would be safe and had safe design features, just as TC is claiming. Some of our members are feeling there's a conspiracy with respect to our efforts. For instance, we filed a Federal Access to Information Act request over a year ago. We have not received a response. Federal law demands the information be supplied within 60 days. We've received nothing, although we understand thousands of pages responsive to the request have been identified. TCE claims transparency, yet our requests for their preliminary findings from environmental studies in water and land and our requests for project financial pro formas have been ignored. We learned last week that our original petitions, a copy of which you will receive today, submitted to Parliament, were shredded. Shopkeepers in Farmington are asked to remove signs from their windows. And signature gatherers in local parking lots have been encouraged by shopkeepers to step away. We persist. TCE's proposal entails the creation of a 400-acre, 1.7 kilometer long person-made reservoir, which would hold 23 million cubic meters of water. It'll be gouged out of a swath of the Niagara Escarpment. The 67-foot concrete embankment will be built around its perimeter. Note that the Niagara Escarpment was designated a World Biosphere Reserve by UNESCO in 1990. As per oversight arrangements of the UNESCO program, the federal government manages this and 17 other national sites. Because the site's on federal land, it is exempt from the statutory protection of the Provincial Niagara Escarpment Planning and Development Act. However, lands in the vicinity, including those that will be impacted by construction related activity, fall within the Act's regulatory scope. We find it very disappointing that TCE is using DND control of this special geography to escape regulatory protections. TCE reports there will be $250 million in annual savings for Ontario ratepayers, about $17 per Ontario resident per year. TCE's plan appears to have the Ontario government fund the facility at an estimated cost of $5.3 billion. That's $364 each from rate and taxpayers. Hydro project construction, according to a study out of Oxford University, have an average cost overrun of 96%. And you have projects in Canada that have experienced this. I believe one is named Muskrat Falls. Who will pay for that extra $5 billion? Well, tax and ratepayers, of course. Compare these costs and uncertainties to the Clean Air Alliance proposal that twice the energy can be delivered to Ontario for $80 million by extending power lines from Quebec Hydro into Ontario. This cost per Ontario resident is $5.52 one time. It does not put the Niagara Escarpment or Georgian Bay at risk to do that. Today, we're providing your worship and council members with a copy of our petition containing 3,300 signatures of those opposed to the project. Who can we deliver that to here?
To the clerk or back to Margaret in the back,
Okay,
please.
thank you.
Thanks.
These people and many others want you to join us to oppose this harmful and risky project. We have some actions we would ask for. Publicly join our opposition to the project. Enforce council's resolution of June 2020, which demanded that the DND not approve TCE's request to proceed without satisfaction that the issues identified in the resolution can be addressed and can be addressed without harm to the environment. Share in our education efforts to the region's population and to provincial officials how the project cannot be put in place without harming the environment, the escarpment, species on the site and in the water, and that well-being and safety of residents is threatened by the work. Thank you very much for your attention today.
Thank you, Mr. Buck. We really appreciate your opinions. You're sharing your opinions. That's what this time frame is all about. I just want to thank these folks who have contributed to the comments that and the work that of your Save Georgian Bay. Many of the comments helped us in forming the concerns that we have with regard to this this proposal that is going forward. And that came forward to council and was fully approved in the staff report in June, the one that you mentioned there. I just want to reinforce that we are waiting anxiously to hear, as you are, the environmental and impact assessments that the company is engaging with, and that we will engage in the processes as well. We will be retaining a project manager to coordinate the review of the various studies that are going on and that will come to us. And we will also retain a qualified consultant that have expertise in these types of reports and assessments to assist with our commenting. We will also generate a process to share with residents of Meaford any information that is forthcoming. And with that, I will thank you all for attending and thank you for your comments. And we will move on now to Rob Peacock and John Leckie from the Meaford Hospital Foundation.
Yourself on that picture.
Okay.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Please feel free to remove your masks if you're comfortable with
thanks.
that.
That's
It's a
good
little
idea.
difficult.
Thanks, Your Worship. Thanks a lot. Well, thank you, Your Worship and councillors, for giving us some time today. We have a happy story, and it was very ironic or coincidence to be. I'm the new chair. I was just sitting beside Barbara Little, who was the former chair, and Brian Rankin, who's been such a gem to the Meaford Hospital Foundation.
We planned it that way, John.
Well done.
I just, before introducing our new CEO, Rob Peacock, I'm just going to speak briefly and try and put in context. I've been on the board for 9 years. David Glass asked me in the middle of a golf game if I'd come and join the board 9 years ago, and my time is almost up coming this June. I have a nice successor lined up unless he gets better volunteer opportunities. That'll be Vince, and he'll come on board in June. But to put it in what's going on with the foundation in context, just going to leap to what happened to Rob and I this morning. Another coincidence, Wally Gabler and his wife, Carol Cushing, came and gave us a great donation, significant donation. You'll probably see it in the paper. And they did that because they had I want to say great experience. How can you have great experience, but a very comforting experience at the hospital. Wally, as you may know, was a quarterback for Winnipeg and for the Tiger Cats. And here we are the next day. he's sitting in our boardroom and we're discussing what to do with the money. And what we're going to do with the money is trying to put it in, I'm trying to use it to put this in context. Going to invest it in the floor. Now, over my 9 years at the Meaford Foundation, Brian and Barbara could attest to this, I've had a feeling that we were playing defense, to use a sports metaphor, because we had this image in our mind, what would happen to the hospital if the boiler room went at the same time we had a downturn in the economy, and would Queen's Park stick with us and blah, blah, blah. So we kept squirreling away money. Then we got a new CEO, Gary Sims, who's encouraged us, no, it's okay to spend some money on paint, clean the washrooms, whatever it takes, spiff it up, and you don't need to keep squirreling money away because you have a very bright future. And that bright future can be characterized, and Rob will speak to it, the cataract suite that another local donor came up with a lot of money. And
that has helped us kind of shift and turn the corner. Now, having said all that, you know, as counselors, the success doesn't really mean you're going to squirrel away more money. Actually, it means you're going to burn through a lot more cash to keep up with the infrastructure that's needed to keep up with the growth and the demands upon your economy. So our growth is going to need more money. And to be honest, that's why we're here. So you've been great contributors in the past. We look forward to the partnership continuing in the future. And just before I turn it over to Rob, I'm not going to dig into it, but in addition to the capital equipment and so on that is required, the experience that Wally Gabler had a lot to do, we hear this over and over anecdotally, had a lot to do with his human experience or psychological experience at the hospital. That means people. So this town and that hospital have some sort of an effect on patients going in there that it doesn't have to do with the medical equipment or the medical technology. It has to do with the caring attitude. And in that regard, Mayor, we've had discussions about recruitment, we've had discussions about family health teams and about necessary attainable housing that's going to be needed to attract more and more nurse practitioners, doctors, and so on. So I'm not going to get into that area right now because it's way too big. So I'm just going to stop there and introduce Rob.
Thank you, John, Mr. Chair, and your worship, councillors. It's a distinct pleasure to be here today. And we start off with a small presentation. And I don't propose to go through every page, but I'm going to just say at the outset, it's been a challenging couple of years with COVID, and it's had a profound impact not only on everyone here, but perhaps as much even the Meaford Hospital Foundation, where in fact one ward was opened up that hadn't been used for 20 years. Pressing ahead, we just want to recognize that Meaford is, some might say expanding, others might suggest exploding, whatever. It's growing and you all know it. That in and of itself has a profound impact on the hospital and, quite frankly, the foundation. So we just wanted to start off with a small but big thank you for everything you've done and your leadership as a council over the course of the last decade. And quite frankly, over the course of the last quarter century. In that quarter century, the Meaford Council has provided over $1 million of support. And if I may, thank you very, very, very much appreciated. If we look at what is actually occurring, within the hospital itself, we're one of 5 hospitals that's part of GBHS, known as Grey Bruce Health Center, and I think you're well aware of it. But I'm not sure you're well aware of the fact that this hospital's been around for 70 years. And as we continue to provide exemplary care, the complexities of that continue to change. And we're not only here to stay, we're here, as our site manager said in a meeting this morning with Wally Gabler, to continue to grow. So looking at some of the background of the hospital itself, just some key facts, you look at it. We do over 500,000, if you will, lab tests per year. And our demographics, the average age of patient population 72, the average age, if you will, of an emergency individual coming in is 54. So you do get a sense of it. But what's the challenge? The fact is that, again, the town of Blue Mountains and, quite frankly, the municipality of Meaford are some of the fastest growing communities in all of Ontario. And growth is steadily upon us. And so how do we make a difference with all of that? When you look at the foundation itself has been around for 38 years, and how do we work together to meet the increased demands that are going to be not only here today, and we anticipate more so being with us in the future? It's by having the right equipment. We have to, and that's what the foundation primarily focuses on, is having the right equipment. And it's for all the work that our donors and our volunteers do and help provide. In the example of, say, the MRI that went in to help all of the Grey Bruce Health Services. But it's bigger than that. It's sharing that vision for what is, in fact, and John alluded to, our donor who provided over $1 million for the cataract surgery suite that is going to address those key demographics I just spoke to. And we need to continue to work together because that technology actually has many returns further on investment, whether it comes to endoscopies or, in fact, orthopedics in the future. So hold on, because there's more to happen at the Meaford Hospital. Right now, we're focused on our goal this year of medical equipment at $838,000 and the cataract surgery suite and so forth. And I'm here to say that we're going to meet and exceed those objectives this year. But that's just this year. Wait till next year, and it just keeps going. So to continue in our partnership, we seek the municipality of Meaford's thoughtful consideration of, if you will, after completing your 1 decade, $500,000 commitment, another commitment at the rate of $50,000 per year over a 5-year period, or $250,000, so that we in fact have 1 deputation and so forth. And we know that that is a year out and so forth, but we recognize that the need is great and going to be greater. Just a little bit of background. We've had, as John's alluded to, some changes with our board recently. We've just added 3 new board members. We want to also recognize John as our chair and also acknowledge the standing work for over 7 years that Barbara Little has provided as a very hardworking volunteer for the foundation, if you will. It's been a really incredible period of time and lots of transition, but we're looking forward to the future. So thank you very, very much for your time this afternoon. And thank you very much for your continued support. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming with this good news story. It is a good news story. Our hospital is so vital in our community, not only to our residents, but also to attract newcomers into the area. We know how valuable it is, and we are doing our best to support it as we go along. I really value the relationships that we've developed with the foundation and through having our hospital here as well. So it is certainly a partnership as we move ahead. We're all in it together to provide the very best care from health and wellness for all of our residents. So thank you for what you and the foundation are doing. Congratulations to Barbara Little and her retirement. I think it's congratulations, isn't it? After that length of time, and best wishes to you as you move ahead with a very ambitious program going forward. We thank you for your time today, and I don't know if council has a comment or anything to add. Deputy Mayor, please go ahead.
Your worship, thank you. I just thought I would quickly add, thinking back roughly 20 years ago when we were facing losing our hospital, and what a very long way we have come. And that certainly is thanks to not just this council, but to everyone who has worked so hard to build and to see our hospital grow. And if I may, I'll borrow Rob Boyd's word when you talked about our community exploding, and Rob's favorite word is evolving. And I like that a lot. Meaford is really evolving, and so is our hospital. I know several people who have claimed that they moved here because of our hospital. So that's pretty incredible. So thank you for all you're doing.
It really is astounding when you think of that time. Surely we were all involved with the thought of perhaps losing our operating theater, in which we took, to me, the thin edge of the wedge to decline. And that has turned around completely. And now we have what will be a state-of-the-art cataract surgical unit that will be able to handle other forms of treatment and diagnostics as well. So very, very exciting times for all of us. And we really thank you for sharing this good news story with us today. Thanks for coming. All right, we're moving on the agenda to deputations on agenda items, and there are none registered, and there are no public questions registered either. So with that, we'll move on to council inquiries. And Councillor Kentner.
Thank you, Your Worship. If I may, a question to CAO Rob Armstrong. And Rob, if I could just take you back to the earlier presentation that we heard this afternoon. In the report, they said that they wanted us to enforce Council's resolution of June 2020, which demanded that the DND not approve TCE's request to proceed without satisfaction that the issues identified in the resolution document can be addressed and can be addressed without harm to the environment. My question is, has that been satisfied in your mind?
To Your Worship, what came of that report was an identification of a lot of issues that the municipality was concerned about with the help of Save Georgian Bay in identifying those issues. There's a lot of expertise on that group, and they worked with us in identifying those issues. We identified that it would be great if DND was satisfied of those issues before they even gave the go-ahead to go to the stage. But at that point, we were advised that D&D would not be doing that, that would need to occur through the environmental assessment processes, which would come forward. So that's the process that we will need to review and look at those. Ideally, our ask was for them to be satisfied initially, and we were advised that from D&D that could not occur at that point in time, but that it would be critical as part of the environmental impact assessment process.
Good, thank you, Rob.
And if I may, just
Supplementary.
supplementary, in other words, the fact that you just can't answer those questions until the research has been done, is that what you're saying?
Correct.
That was my understanding, correct?
Thank
yes.
you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I have two questions, if I may.
Sure.
The first would be for Mr. Armstrong, and wondering if you can share with us, Rob, any information or updates related to Christmas decorations. We're all of us hearing, I think, from some of our residents that we're not quite as spiffed up this year as we sometimes are. And I just wondered if you could share with council what was happening with the Christmas decorations.
Your Worship, the Christmas wreaths that used to be hung and had lights on them got to a point of quite disrepair. A number of the lights would not be on, and there was inconsistency through. So we have developed a program to start replacing those wreaths with newer decorations, and you'll be hearing through some of that through the budget process, and can be included under the Strategic Initiatives program. We used to receive funding from the initial wreaths from other organizations that no longer provide that funding. So it's over to our municipality whether we want to consider and what we want to do in relation to that.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
And I had a second question, if I may, and I'm not sure, Jessica or Rob, whether you want to take this. Last week, we had in our mail the new updated waste management guide. And in it, it lists, which confused me, styrofoam that should go in the garbage. And we know we have a styrofoam program now once a month, a drop-off spot where people can take their styrofoam. So I just wondered if there was a change in that, or just what's going on with the styrofoam.
Through you, Madam Chair. Nothing has changed with the styrofoam. So we have been working a lot with Transition Meaford on advertising for the program, and I think it's actually worked out really well. Information had gone out in our newsletter. We've helped with social media, but it was not included in the waste guide this iteration. It had been in the previous. Our plan is to put it in there the next time, but there's no reason that it wasn't included. It's just that we had been communicating in various forms about styrofoam, and we're really excited about how it's been working. But nothing has changed, to answer your question, no.
Okay, thank you. Now you're welcome. Councillor Bell.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and this one is directed to Ms. Jessica Wiley. Everyone's known that the weather has been, it's been really wet, to say the least, and the ground has not frozen up, nor are we experiencing, the beginning of a winter with its snow. And to that end, the rideability out on the rural roads is, it's quite poor. And I know that it must be a real struggle for the crews to take a grader out. The gravel is wet, it becomes quite slurry, and then, they try to spread it again. But this past weekend, I went out to, I left home to go somewhere. I used 3 different ways on 3 different graveled roads. And I'm just asking Jessica, what kind of methodology do the crews do right now, given that the weather is really playing havoc with the graveled roads, and just to improve rideability? And just so my fellow councilors know, if you haven't been out in a rural area, just traveling from where I live to get to a paved road today, I really I didn't press my own vehicle much past 30 kilometers an hour. The potholes, Madam Mayor, they're just literally one after the other. So Jessica, if you could just give us a little information as to what the methodology is when the weather has been very non-cooperative with everyone.
Through you, Madam Chair, I don't think it's a surprise. The weather has definitely not been in our favor, as you say. So we have about 165 lane kilometers of gravel road in the municipality and 3 graders. The second that we are able to have graders grading any section of the roadways, they've been out. We receive complaints. We also have road patrollers who are constantly patrolling the roads. So we're aware of where the more problematic areas are. At this point, it's most. In locations that we are unable to utilize a grader, we are depositing gravel, like granular material, in potholes to try to keep it somewhat passable until we're able to get the grader there to continue the work. And I can honestly say that it's a continuous cycle. We really need it to start freezing and stay frozen. So for the last couple of weeks, staff have been very occupied throughout the day and even sometimes into the evenings, trying to keep these roadways, including the weekends, passable. But we've been helping communicate to residents as well, just to understand, like you say, that we're trying our best given the weather circumstances. And we definitely appreciate people's patience, but we are constantly out there trying to stay on top of it.
Thank you, Jessica. And Madam Mayor and fellow councilors, one evening I did go home a little bit later from the shop, and Jessica just said about the crews being out at night. I thought there was a terrible accident, and it was actually the crews that were working. It was 6:30, Jessica, and they were still on the road. So I know that they are trying, but thanks for your comments.
Thank you very much for your support.
Councillor Bell, and over to you, Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And actually, it's just a comment on Councillor Bell's request to Jessica. I understand that it is very hard to keep the roads in shape in this weather. If they're wet, I know where I live is the graders are out there all the time doing their best. Now, just an FYI for anybody listening, I went to the Holstein Santa Claus Parade this weekend. I went through 3 different municipalities south of us on gravel roads, and they were not any better at all. As a matter of fact, there was one road that there was 100 cars on, and we were all trying to turn around because the road was not inhabitable because of the way that the roads have sucked up the moisture. So my heart goes out to Jessica. I don't know how you do it, but I know the guys are out there doing their best. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. And just further to that, Jessica, if I may, perhaps that's the answer. I've been contacted by a few residents who've mentioned when the snowplow went by, that the edges of their lawns received some damage, and perhaps that's the reason why that the ground is just still too soft. And can we reassure those folks that repairs will happen at the appropriate time?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes. So the appropriate answer is that if residents feel that that's happened to their lawn, please do let us know. We have a list. The list is started for maintenance in the spring. We do it in the spring just because we're not going to re-damage it, or anything else isn't going to happen. So by the time the snow is gone is when we start that maintenance program. In general, it's everything from the ground is really soft. Sometimes people put out their own stakes, and drivers will think that that's the edge of pavement when it sometimes isn't. So there's just a lot of little reasons why that might happen. As some of you know, visibility during snow events is not always easy, so accidents can definitely happen that way. But our solution is always that we will maintain those damaged areas come the springtime. We just need to know about them.
Thank you. Okay. Anything further? I'm not seeing any questions. Thanks very much, Jessica and council. And now we will move on to the tabling of the 2022 draft budget. And this brings you, Rob, into the picture. You have a presentation for us?
Yes, thank you, Worship. So the time has come to present the 2022 draft municipal budget, both on the tax supported and the user pay side. The first thing I like to do in the presentation of the budget is sort of identify to council what's gone on to get us to this point. In the tabling of budgets, because there's been a lot of work that kicked off in June with staff commencing the budget work for 2022. And just some of the things that would be included is if we have a project that we know needs to be undertaken next year for 2022, we have to start looking at getting estimates for that work so that we are giving council what we believe to be the best numbers that we can in budgeting for next year. So we kicked this off in June at the staff level, where a number of things are provided to staff in doing so. On July 12th, council received a directions report. In the next slides, I'll just go through a bit of a reminder on some of the things that were part of that process. In addition, and new this year is we implemented a new budgeting software called Questica. And what that involved is all of the managers and staff and administrative support who provide assistance in preparation had to receive training on the new system. This new system in future years will be very advantageous going forward for staff to prepare budgets. But I hope you can appreciate the first year we were discovering all of the different ins and outs of the program and everything in developing it. And is one of the key reasons why the budget was a bit delayed in being tabling, because we wanted to make sure with a new system that at the end of the day, the number we were pulling and what we were pulling out of the budget was correct. So there was extra testing, and that's why we've been a little late in the original time frame that was presented on July 12th for the budget. July 12th through July to September, capital sheets are built on the various projects. Numbers are refined within the operating side through to that point. And then as we move into October, November, it moves up to management level and senior level where we compile the budgets. We also have to, in a lot of situations, verify where the funding is going to come from, whether it's on the capital or the operating side, whether it's going to come from reserves, come from existing tax base, or is it a carryover project from previous years, which requires additional funding. So those are the things that we do in October, November. And then that brings us forward to probably at the end of November, we were ready to publish it, which puts us for this date as November 13th. So that's where we are today. So back to the budget framework. Obviously, this was before council and then direction given by council just to highlight some of the components of it. The first three, no change from years gone by, 1% to roads, 1% to bridges and structures, and 0.5% to facilities. Council's adopted a policy that we start the budget process with a cost of living salary adjustment of 1%. So that is following along with that. In addition, council directed staff to apply the real assessment growth due to new development and building permit construction towards the new staffing. And that was basically consistent with the report that came back to council last May to deal with a lot of our growth pressures. And I'll speak to that a little further on another slide. The 2022 Canada Community Building Fund grant, which was estimated at the time of $348,600, be put towards road resurfacing projects within the capital plan. We also were approving the one-time funding from the Canada Community Building Fund received in 2021 towards Bayshore asphalting of $335,000. Lastly, in 2021, we received approximately $450,000 in the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund, as well as we anticipated receiving that same amount of funding. So that was to go towards the Gillies Bridge project, $916,000. I'll speak to the OSIF funding a little later and the changes that we've recently learned about and how that will be considered in the future. Budget structural changes. Obviously, this budget, as being presented to council, will look a little different, and that's mostly related to Questica, as identified below. In addition, we continue to place significant emphasis on trying to allocate budget expenses and revenues to the basic different groups to ensure that we are more accurately reflecting the cost to deliver that service. And is basically our biggest effort to try to ensure transparency and accountability in delivering of those services. You'll notice for this year, the most significant change is with a bit of our restructuring, there is some different salary allocations, cost adjustments. So although salaries may end up in one area, you'll see an adjustment being made or a reallocation to other areas from that salary. We want to keep the salary itself in one location and then do adjustments out to the other areas through interfunctional transfers. In addition, the gravel replacement program, which used to always be on the capital side, is now, because it's not a capital item, is now being moved over to the operating side budget. So you'll see less being spent on roads capital as it's moved into operating. But at the end of the day, we're going to demonstrate how we're still doing the additional 1% to roads. As we always indicate, you wouldn't be seeing this budget if staff weren't satisfied that it is a fiscally responsible budget. Given the challenges that we're facing, we're hearing many municipalities are struggling with significant increased costs to deliver the various programs and also do their capital programs. So we are seeing that throughout the province. Many municipalities are also seeing significant increases with their initial budgets of well in the upwards of the 8 to 10% range as they present their budgets to their councils. This year, we are seeing the full year implementation of the staffing changes approved in May. So we have the Director of Development Services, the IT Coordinator, the Parks and Facilities Coordinator, and the Development Review Coordinator. In that report, it was very clear that those would be funded in next year through the anticipated growth that we are experiencing, so the increase in assessment, plus an anticipated 1% increase. I'm happy to report that as this budget's being presented, we are in line with those originally estimates that we spoke to at council back last May. We are continuing to provide our priority funding to address our infrastructure deficit for roads, bridges, and facilities. So we've been able to match our 1.5 in the deliberation of this budget. We always like to highlight the budget assumptions. So those external or those things that we are faced with this year that really are uncontrollable. We have insurance policy premiums that have gone up 29,780 projected. Our insurance renews in April, and those are we anticipate to be the increases for 2022. Information Technology Council has heard about the concerns about cyber technology, and these are requirements that we have to make to our system to continue to be able to have cybersecurity insurance should we be hit with ransomware or any other type of attack that many other organizations are feeling throughout North America. Our salt and sand expenses have gone up 25,000. We know that the Grey Sawville Conservation Levy is proposing to go up 9,970. A lot of that has to do with changes the province has made to the services that are provided to lower tiers and more being placed on municipalities. The Owen Sound North Grey Public Library is going up a little bit of 1,700. And then our facility lease costs. Now this is cost for us to lease buildings versus when we ownership. In particular, as council is very recently aware, our move into the Scott Clay product building for both our water and wastewater division and transportation services. With that building being sold or being taken on by another private business, we are moving into those, so we do incur lease costs. In this budget, we also have the 1% COLA and the normal salary step progressions. We also have in this report, obviously subject to consideration later today by council, but in the report, we have the phased implementation of the salary market review, which is the current committee recommendation to council. So that is in the current budget. The OMPF funding was reduced, a minor reduction in that, so we've included that in the budget. If council will recall, we had a significant increase based on tendering of our waste management services that we provide to our residents. And last year we pulled $130,000 out of the waste management reserve to help alleviate the cost. We are recommending that again this year, mostly on the basis that 2023 will see the elimination of our expected elimination of our delivery of recycling as that moves up to the province and user, sorry, the end user, sorry, source, like the Pepsis and those, they'll be paying for the recycling program versus the taxpayer. So that will be one change. So we have that recommended this year. We do have an additional building official and vehicle in the budget. However, that's fully recoverable from permit fees. As you'll see again in the report a little later tonight, that the significant amount of building permits, basically quite a bunch of funds will be going into the reserves again, but we are at a point now where we need an additional building official to deal with the workload, and that building official will also require vehicles. So again, no impact on the tax rate, as it will be fully recoverable by the building permit fees that we currently collect without raising the fees as well. We've eliminated the PILT write-off. We always used to include a write-off of 85,000 based on the payment of lieu of taxes for the base. With the settlement, we do no longer need to write that off. So that is included in the current budget presented to council. This year, our proposed real assessment growth is projected in at 210,000. It's currently not in the base budget. It's been taken off because it's basically part of our tax rate. So we don't include that. And I'll explain that a little further as we go through on what the current tax rate would be. When we produced this report, we were understanding that the OSIF funding was going to be doubling from 426 to close to 950,000, or sorry, 850,000, sorry. Since that time, we did receive word from the provincial government that we're actually going to be getting 995,000, close to $1 million in doubling funding. You heard that we proposed what we anticipated to get to go to the Gillies Bridge. We now have to consider on how we're going to be spending the other rest of the OSIP funding. It is very prescriptive on how you spend it, mostly infrastructure or your asset management planning. So we will come forward in January and sort of present some of our ideas on how we can fund it. I think our initial thoughts will be to reduce the amount of debt, which can assist our taxpayers going forward, in that we don't have to, if we don't have to incur more debt, then we don't have to apply those. So those are really what we're looking at, and also potentially offset some of our asset management planning on the operating side. So we'll bring those forward in January when we come back. In addition, this budget does not include a number of enhancements. Those will be part of our January 11th presentation, where council will be able to consider individually the enhancements being proposed. So those include right now some additional municipal enforcement vehicle and the additional staff related to municipal enforcement, which you've heard about, the additional washing and cleaning. So these are actually services that we increased due to COVID, but will no longer be funded through the COVID grants that we received from the provincial government. So now we have to consider them as enhancements. There's some proposals in there for some customer service clerk assistance at the front counter, and we'll explain that a little further in the process. The winter maintenance of the Georgian Trail, we know that there's been a desire to provide some winter maintenance like our community to the east is doing. So that will be as an enhancement sheet. Southern Georgian Bay Tourism, their presentations included an increase in request, and then the well-being plan implementation. So those will all come through detailed enhancements reports, which council will have on the 2-day session, or the second day session on January the 11th. So in presenting where we are right now, the base budget, so if you look at last year's base budget of $15.5 million, the base budget increase going up $858, and that includes the gravel that I spoke to. Because if you look down to road capital funding, you can see it's actually going down. That's because the 300 and some thousand related to road resurfacing is now up in the base budget under the operating side. But if you brought it back down into capital, it would be at the 1% increase. So it is consistent with that. And then we have pretty much the 1% and the 0.5% on the facility side. And then our proposed general capital funding. So that's for all the other programs such as information technology, fire, and some of our other park stuff. That's at 0.89%. I'm happy to report that the general capital funding this year is consistent. And that's what we're really looking. We're looking at stable funding year over year on the general side, so that we're not increasing it significantly. So that's consistent with previous years. So then that takes us, the ask or the need for 2022 is at 16.6 million, an increase of 1 million, or currently sitting at 6.96%. That is not our current proposed tax increase. That's the additional funding we need based on what's in the budget. So then we move over to the elements of the tax supported budget impact. So we know this year that a 1% change on the levy is equivalent to 153,750. So every year as we take stuff out or add stuff in, that can give you a perspective on how much it's going to increase the percentage. When we apply the 210,000 expected from growth, we're going to see a 1.36% reduction on that number I gave you, the 6.96. So right now, the current tax increase on proposed on the residents is sitting at 5.6%. In addition, when When we come back in January, we have to speak about the OSIF funding, the additional OSIF funding, and how that may impact and reduce the impact on the taxpayer. As well, we've learned some additional information with regard to the Ontario gas tax funding and how that can be applied. So we'll have more information in January on how that may play into our budgets as well. We always like to identify how the tax dollar breakdown goes. On the big side, no surprise, we have the capital 26% and then infrastructure services at 31%. That's basically our roads operational side, which with all the equipment and the staff in there and the amount required for that, it is quite the significant, and waste management's in there as well. It does identify a major portion of the tax dollars. Community services, 34%. A big portion of that is the Ontario Provincial Police. And then the smaller side, we have development services at 3%, library at 5%, and corporate and CAO, corporate services and CAO. So that's the overall administration. It includes HR services, strategic initiatives, and the financial services staff related to that. So it comes in at 1%. And then on the tax, how we, what breaks up our $9.6 million capital program, you can see obviously bridges is the big element at just over $3.5 million, and then road at 1.6. And then the smaller items you can see throughout make up the 9.6 million. And in doing so, we'd see how we're proposing to fund it. So of that 9.6, 4.2 is proposed out of the current year levy. 2.3 million is being pulled from reserves, whether it's projects being carried over or funding that we believe should be from reserves because it's been set aside for that purpose. The federal gas tax, grants and subsidies, so those are the OSIF funding. So that 1.4 million will be, if we apply it to reduce the long-term debt, will be put in there, or carry projects, 25,000 of development charges, long-term debt 788, and then donations 114,000. So that's making up our funding for our capital projects. Next, moving over to the user paid budget. The base budget increase proposed and consistent with our business plans that have been developed as required by our licenses are sitting at 8% increase on the water, equal to 228,000, and almost pretty much 8% on the sewer side, making up 144,000. That is not the rate increase that would be anticipated by the individual users. I'll explain that in a bit. A lot of these costs are attributed to increased wastewater plant maintenance costs, distribution collection systems, different projects that we would do in through rehabilitation. And then the next slide basically shows you on the water side, on the operating side, it actually has gone down. And then on the capital side, it's gone up. So you can see the majority of the increased costs on the water side is related to capital. On the sanitary side, the operating has gone up, proposed. That a lot is to do with fixing a lot of our inflow and infiltration elements, which are operating projects versus capital projects. So the actual operating is not really increasing significantly. It's more of how we're going to be dealing with the inflow and infiltration applied to it. Again, better, more in-depth explanation will occur from Chris and Jessica on the 10th as it relates to the water and wastewater side and the individual costs. This highlights a lot of the capital program on the user rate supported, so $3.3 million. And what's going to the water distribution system. We have the Cook Street project that will be going to construction on the distribution side, continuing working on the water booster pumping station on the water side. And then the wastewater collection system, some of our I&I stuff as well. So that's the breakdown of the user rate supported. And then the sourcing of the funding, again, on the grants and subsidies, OSIF could go to helping on the water and wastewater side. So some of it could be applied here. Again, we'll have those discussions as we consider the breakdown of the additional funding we received. Big with regard to this project is long-term debt. Basically, as we fund Thompson Street and other future projects, we know more and more would be applied to debt. So the base budget, as I indicated, is 8% water, 8% sewer. But as we apply new users, so similar on the assessment growth, we're going to have new users that can help eat into that base budget. Plus, as we bring forward the infrastructure charge applicable to vacant lots who are sitting on our system and not paying anything for them. And as we bring that forward, that will help reduce the costs across more users and be able to bring that 8% down. So now with the budget being tabled, what are the next steps? So here we are today, Monday, December 13th with the tabling. We will be holding the public engagement session. So we always have before council gets into the deliberations on the 10th and 11th, an engagement session so that if any of the public want to provide comments to council as you head into those days, will be January 5th at 6:30 in Woodford. We have the 2-day budget days on, that should be the 10th and the 11th, I think, not the 9th and the 10th. We're not going to pull you in on a Sunday. So that should be the 10th and the 11th. Day 1 being the operating day, day 2 being the capital and enhancements. Final consideration, additional deliberations if necessary at the council meeting on January the 17th. Moving to the statutory public meeting on Monday, January the 31st, and then hopefully final approval of the budgets on the February the 14th. We anticipate that we may be bringing the fees and charges bylaw a little sooner because the need to get fees and charges in place for the entire year. So we might be bringing those sooner in January. One of the things that's not on here that we as staff would like to offer up to council is as you go through this, you may have some questions, and what staff, senior staff talked about is setting some time aside for individual councillors to come into the office and meet with staff and ask those one-on-one questions. And if it's something that council is interested in, we're more than willing to and happy to be able to set those up and have those available to staff and have some one-on-ones. It might be easier to have those questions put forward in that sort of session where we would do that before we get into the days in January. So we'd probably cover them off in the next couple of weeks with council if you're interested. So I'm at the end of the presentation, if you just want to share your desire to, if people are interested, that we're more than willing to do that new this year. Just to recap on what those days will include. So the January 10th budget day will be the general introduction by myself and highlights of the Q&A received to January 6th and any update on the budget. So as we find out additional information, we've tried to estimate some, and as we get confirmation, we will update the budget and have an update at that point in time. Each department will be provided for 45 minutes for their divisions to present the operating budgets. As we have in the past, we're going to set specific times where certain areas of the budget will be considered. So if some of the public wants to come in for the transportation or for the policing side, which would be in community services, then they can come at a specific time and know when that will be presented. So if we finish up one earlier than the other, then we will be breaking until that time. It's just to follow along with those processes. The presentations will include, as they have in the past, departmental head count. So you'll understand who's how many staff are in each division, the highlights of the budget, some of the pressure points, what we're looking at from a fees and charges point of view, what operating projects we have, and then a bit of an outlook into future year budgets. We didn't do some long-term budgeting this year because this is the last term for this council, and we were learning the new system and utilizing that for long-term budgeting. So we haven't done a lot of look out to the future with regard to this current system. Over to the Capital Day, there'll be the general introduction again by myself, where we're at, what we did the previous day. So a slide will be generated that night for to advise council where we are before we head into the Capital Day. Again, 45 minutes for most divisions. There's some divisions that won't even be presenting that day. When I look to my right and Rob's division, he doesn't have any capital projects, so he won't be presenting any of the capital projects. But mostly roads, water, sewer, fire, and parks and facilities. Those will be the focus of the capital programs that you'll be hearing. And then enhancement reports will occur at the end of the day as we go through those, and council will deliberate on those enhancements on whether you want to include them or not. So that's the outline. One last thing I will say in closing is that the approach that staff would like to take with council this year is a very strong collaborative approach in finalizing this budget. In the past, it's maybe staff have said, this is the budget, it's now up to you. We want to work very closely with you through this entire process in finding ways and efficiencies and thinking outside the box as we try to finalize our budget and deliver the best budget for our ratepayers that we feel that we can with all the constraints that we have. So that's the process that we will be taking as we go on through this process. And I want to again also thank the management team, the users, and the directors for bearing with us as we work through this new system. I think at the end of the day, it's going to be very beneficial year over year to deliver the budget, because it's going to be more like modifying the year before versus building it from scratch within the system. So thanks again, and I will turn it over if there's any questions. Again, we'll be getting into the details, and this is not intended to be line by line questions, but if you have some basic questions about the budget process and just that, more than willing to try to answer those.
Thank you, Rob. Very, very thorough presentation and delivery here. Sets us up for great discussion going forward. And particularly, thank you for offering one-on-one conversations with council. Anyone that wishes to take advantage of this and go line by line and see what you can do together. I think that's wonderful way to approach it. I just had one question. I remember a significant increase in uncontrollable costs last year for our budget. And I'm wondering if there's, you made some budget assumptions, but there was no % increase year over year. And I just wondered if there was anything that stood out this year in terms of extraordinary increases in those uncontrollable costs.
Yeah, through your worship, I don't think there was anything. There has been something. We highlighted the ones that we thought were of significant. I think the salt and sand we identified as one. The insurance we know is going to be a significant. So we've tried to highlight some of those significant ones that we saw. But I think from the most part, those are the ones that we know about.
Thank you. Councillor Bell and Councillor Bartley. Councillor Greenfield, did you have your hand up?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I want to say you've clarified a few things for myself today, Mr. CAO. I used to think that staff, as soon as council approved a budget for 1 year, that they immediately start to go to work. And you've said that really the budgeting starts in June. So I appreciate that. The other comment, Rob, I found your last comment to be absolutely refreshing when you said about working collaboratively together. That struck me really well, and I really appreciate that being brought forward by yourself, working together. That's exactly what I look forward to personally. One question on the budget's numbers, just so I know when I start calculating things out. We're at 16 million plus on one and 9 million on the other. So our totality of our budget is 27 million, is somewhere in that zone. That's where we're kind of looking in that total zone of around 27 million. So I just have one comment for my fellow councillors, Madam Mayor, to consider as we go through the budget on the 2 days. This council, I believe, was extremely wise in setting aside 1%, 1%, and 0.5. I'm sure that you, as other fellow councillors, have had opportunity to talk with other members of councils in other jurisdictions. And some literally have told me that, well, they're going to leave that problems of building bridges and doing roads to somebody else. We as a council braced that head on, and we decided to assess 1, 1, and 0.5 to the ratepayers. As we move through in the days that we will, I want you to consider that maybe, possibly, at this point, we're a little aggressive with that 1%, 1%, and 0.5. And at this point, I'm not suggesting necessarily that we eliminate it completely. I am saying for your consideration over Christmas and New Year's, to maybe we're being a little aggressive on it. And when you add up like I did with the current 1% being 157,000, we're demanding basically 384,000 plus. So it is one area that after we get through everything we're doing, if we're not comfortable with where we're going to fall with the tax increases to the ratepayers, I'm just asking you to consider whether we've been aggressive out of the gate and telling and directing our staff how to put together the budget. I'm just asking you for that consideration. But as far as the book that I received and looking through it, I have to say up front, it's going to be a little tough this year in my own mind at this point to find some massive savings. I just really didn't see anything, Madam Mayor and fellow councillors, that jumped out. So I think that it was put together really well. And if you're making it tough on council to find some savings, then I guess one could conclude it's well put together. So thank you very much for that. And thanks for the time to speak, Madam Mayor.
Welcome. Councillor Bartley, you're next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and Rob, thanks for doing this. I thought you'd put Val in the hot seat today, but I guess that didn't happen. Just an FYI, I've spent close to 50 hours now watching other municipalities' budget deliberations. And one come off fairly good. One south of us has just finished up. Their increase is higher than what we're starting at now. And that's after they deliberated for 37 hours in council. So it is going to be tough. I went through it and I have several questions. I know the other municipalities are starting to put away money, one at 1.7, one at 2. So they are doing that. They've seen the bear of their ways, so they're starting that. I have several questions and I know they'll come out in January. One question I was going to put to Matt, on all 3 deliberations that I've watched, policing has dropped between $60,000 and $80,000 in the 3 municipalities. What is ours doing?
Off the top of my head, I think ours is going down by about $3,000. Per household fee has gone down, which is a good sign. That means we're getting less calls. But the number of households we've got has gone up quite significantly.
Okay, it was far off from the 60 to 80,000 that the other 3 are seeing, and they're also having not as many houses built as we are, but several.
I think we just have to remember that for policing there is a base cost which is standard, but then the rest of it is about our calls in this municipality, and so it depends on how we are compared to some of our neighbours, and it may well be that they started off with higher rates than we did and are now coming down to sort of where we are as well.
Thank you.
And Councillor Greenfield.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Rob, and all staff members who have contributed to this initial report. A lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of numbers, a lot of dollars. But anyway, it's a really it's a good start to have this much. When I first saw the 6.96%, I didn't like that. Wasn't happy with that. I'm hearing there's opportunity to bring that down initially, and I'm hoping we can tackle that and get it down lower numbers. I just following up on what Councillor Bell was mentioning, the 1, 1, and 0.5. Our council did bring this forward. Wow, I don't know, 8 or 10 years ago, and it was great. It was a great initiative, but I have thought the last couple of years, since we put this into place, perhaps we could also adjust it somewhat. So I think at the end of the day, maybe Tony, you had a good idea. We should perhaps take a look at those numbers if that becomes necessary. I did have a question. You mentioned that council members preparing some questions and getting them in within the next couple of weeks. Now, directly or indirectly, just about all these questions end up with the treasurer. So are you suggesting all of our questions go to Ms. Manning, or should we try to break them down to individual department heads to send them there? Would that be more appropriate?
Over to you, Rob.
Yeah, through your worship. So the one thing I suggested new was for council, if you want a dialogue as opposed to just sending an email, more than welcome to have you come in and sit down with, we'll make our time available so you can speak to the applicable director who is responsible for your particular question. I think if it's just you're sending questions, and I think I accidentally skipped over one of the last slides. If you can send them through to budgets@meaford.ca, that way that your questions can be recorded. If you want to type up that questions, they will be logged, they will be distributed to the applicable person who's appropriate to answer that question and gotten back to you, as well as all of council, but we'll be logging all of those email questions. The one-on-one is just more if you're seeking for clarifications and things like that, and it's better to explain it than type up a very long email in doing so. So those are the two different things. One of the things I wanted to also, yeah, there it is, sorry. With regard to the budget questions and answers now on the thing. So budgets@meaford.ca if you want to send them through, and we'll make sure that the right divisions answer them. With regard to the 1.5%, I wanted to speak to that a bit. The unfortunate thing right now is that we next year we will be working very aggressively on our asset management planning, and that really helps guide what our long-term funding requirements really are to deal with our asset management planning. The 1.5 came out of our initial reviews of infrastructure requirements. And in talking to our manager of asset management, we would like to sort of present, and this will come forward a bit on the the January 11th day, is what our current infrastructure deficits currently are. So we want you to be very informed if you're going to start making those adjustments to the 1.5, so that you know the long-term impacts of that. So we will be presenting that as part of the January 11th presentation as well.
Thank you for that, Rob. Deputy Mayor, and then Councillor Vickers.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I just wanted to add my thanks to Mr. Armstrong and to his senior management team for the presentation today. I know it's been an awful lot of work, and I'm just so encouraged, as has been mentioned already, with the collaborative efforts that we're going to be partaking in as we go through this budget process this year. It just really feels like we are going to be working together, and like we will get to a result that we can all be well informed of and happy with. And I find the Questica, easy to read, it's easy to follow, and just as from this side of the table, want you to know how much I appreciate your efforts in getting that new program up and running, because I'm sure it's been a huge learning curve. So I look forward to the opportunity to have the one-on-ones, because as always, I have a lot of questions, and that'll be the time to get some of those answers. So thank you.
Councillor Vickers.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to speak a little bit towards what Tony had brought forward and Harley, and now Rob's brought forward, and I have given that some thought, and it would be an easy way to par a few points off the budget. I guess some of my concerns, and I'll put this up for debate as much as anything, is that thank goodness we did do it, because I think there's other municipalities that are in a lot worse shape than what we are. And some of the comments that we had at the start of the meeting about how poor our roads are in some of the gravel roads, and that even makes it that much harder to not go ahead with that 1.5. I guess the other part is I look at it and I wonder if the 1% is even kind of keeping up with inflation. You look at the costs of the Gillies Bridge, where basically, I think if I have it kind of figured out right, we're taking 2 years of bridge building and doing it for one project. The bridges are becoming so expensive that that you can't just fund it through 1 year of taxation. So these are, you asked Tony, and these are some of my concerns about, if we do take some off that 1.5, does it just put us further behind? It's a bitter pill to swallow, but I wonder, I really struggle with trying to make the cut in that area. Thank you.
And Councillor Kentner.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do have a few points. And speaking to that one, I just hope that ratepayers appreciate that, in fact, your council was ahead of the curve and has accomplished a lot over the last couple of terms in rebuilding our infrastructure. And so especially on roads and bridges, at this point, I'm still in favor of trying to, stay the course and keep ahead. And I think it's the fact that other municipalities, including Grey County, are now adopting exactly the same approach, whether it's infrastructure or affordable housing. I think that it shows that we are on the right track. And sometimes it's hard to, stay the course, but I think I just hope ratepayers appreciate the importance of that, the thrust of that, what we've been doing. Yes, you're paying for it, but we are keeping ahead as far as the infrastructure problem that is facing every municipality in the whole country. I'd really appreciate, as others do, Rob's comments. And the only caveat I have is that I was kind of surprised to find that by the time we got around to really determining the budget, we were told that capital projects were cast in concrete, that it was too late really to make any changes, and that it wasn't fair to staff. And I just feel that, if we have to wait until January to have these debates, that, nothing will be cast in concrete. And just one last question to you, Rob, if I may. I agree, 8% is way too high for user pay services increases. And I'm just wondering, have you any idea, I hope we're not talking tenths of points. I hope we're talking, maybe somewhere 5 or lower, because 8 is really high. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Rob, did you want to respond?
I guess the first question about the capital in stone, obviously, have been already commitments made, and those ones we're obligated to, but other capital projects aren't in stone and will be discussed at the 9th and 10th. And any projects that we feel we need to get early commitment, we'll bring separate reports in advance of budget approval. So you'll be aware of those and have those debates separately. With regard to the user rates, it's one of the services that it's pretty, there's not a lot of play in those services. It's very, we've gone through a service review process where we have streamlined the best we can. It really comes down to our capital requirements to maintain those systems. And I think the recent announcement on the OSIF side can go to assist because it goes to infrastructure and that, but it is a constraint with water. Basically, I think the actions that we're taking or proposing to take are our best bet in helping to deal with those fees. And in particular, making sure that everybody that benefits that system is paying for the long term. So that to me, I think that move is going to be our biggest. And then the only other way is getting more users on the existing system. So basically the word intensification, creating more users on the existing system will assist in bringing those down. So.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Councillor Vickers.
Thank you, Your Worship. The other thing that sticks out pretty boldly to me is the COLA, is the wage increase. 1% is, listening to the news and knowing what's going on isn't very realistic. Like I would love to keep it at 1%, but I don't know whether it really is practical. We've kind of lived and died by this COLA rate. When it was low, do we all of a sudden say, well, we aren't going to follow that rate anymore? And I see that it's still at the 1%, Rob. And is that what you're still bringing forward? Is a 1% wage increase for the workers?
Yeah, through Your Worship, council's policy is that we start at 1. So through those council deliberation days, we will identify where other municipalities are at. But that's one of the things that council at the end of the day, after you're in the budget rate where you think things should be, will basically set the rate based on understanding where we are in the overall tax rate.
Because in a way, if you take that 1% and we're at what's the number, 6.5, basically, I don't think we can walk into these budget deliberations thinking that 1% is going to be the number in my mind. I think it's just the where we're living right now. Inflation is rampant. We can talk about who to blame about it, but the fact is that inflation is a lot more than the 1%. So I think this is something we should kind of at least get out on the table sooner than later, and let's be realistic about it.
I agree with you, Councillor Vickers. I think that that's something we are hearing more and more of in the news, particularly the cost of living is increasing. It is far greater than 1%. The county will be coming in at higher than that for sure. And so I think it's to be establishing that as a base is a good thing to start with, but understand that we have an obligation to do the best we can for our employees and to be realistic in our assessment of what that should be going forward. So would that be an enhancement then, or would we, if we were to increase the COLA? How would that be handled? Would it be an enhancement?
Yeah, so like it did last year, we started at the 1%, and I think council made a motion as we were talking about enhancements to bring it up to an X%. And that's where council will debate that and decide at that point. So we'll be at that process.
Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm sorry to drag this out. If you remember last year, Paul, we give 1.6, I think it was. A lot of the other municipalities were below 1% last year because of the way the chips fell. That can change, but we have to start somewhere. So that's why we started at 1. Having said that, again, Councillor Kentner, the water rates, I hope we can get them down. I really do. Just an FYI, the municipality south of us just signed 10% a year for the next 5 years increase on water and sewer. They're in the same boat. My daughter's water bill in Shallow Lake is more than your water and sewer bill in Meaford. So I hope we can get it down, but it might not be realistic. Having said that, one thing I want to bring up, I don't want to leave it to January. Gillies Bridge, are we taking the quote from the last, when it went out to tender? I do believe that we got shafted on that tender. I know I'm not a bridge builder, but are we going back out to tender on that bridge? Because I believe that COVID, not that it's over, really made a difference on that bid.
Whoever gets their mask off first. Through you, Madam Chair. So we didn't award Gillies last year, so it will have to go out to tender again this coming year, in hopes that we might see more favorable pricing based on things we've seen this year. I'm going to keep everything crossed that that's the case. We have done some reconnaissance work with the consultants to try to see if there's ways to decrease costs. Unfortunately, we've just been told that there's increase to costs, so we're doing the best that we can, but we'll have another opportunity for it to go out next year.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for.
Okay, great discussion, everyone. Thanks again, Rob, and to all of staff for the hard work that has gone into to presenting this this draft budget. I think we need a break at this point. We'll come back at 3 o'clock and pick up on motions and bylaws. Decision. All right, moving right along. We still got a ways to go here.
Two items to look after.
Okay, we are moving on now to 9.1. And traditionally, we can approve the following motions and bylaws with through a consent. And first one is bylaw 2021-91 is to authorize the acquisition of 116 William Street be taken as read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. B, bylaw 2021-92 is to establish a schedule of retention periods for corporate records be taken as read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. C, CAO 2021-20 is to endorse the Memorial Park Master Plan as a guiding document in the development of a business plan and future capital budget development. D, CAO 2021-21 is to approve the conveyance of a portion of the Holland Sydenham Townline allowance to Kenneth Johnson in lieu of the dedication of the Forest Road located on Part 4 RP 16R-695 to the municipality, provided the Township of Chatsworth concurs with the conveyance. And the fifth one, CAO 2021-23, is the recommendation that the Council of Municipality of Meaford approve the proposed 2022 salary framework with job rates reflecting the 50th percentile pay target and an annual economic increase and adjustment of 1% effective January 1st, 2022. And two, to adopt the practice of undertaking a periodic market review of all positions on a 4-year cycle. And that the salary framework be implemented via a phased-in approach through 2022. Are there any of those 5 that Council would like to? Councillor Bartley?
Yes, I'd like to pull E, please.
E, the last one?
Yes.
Thank you. Anything else? And can I have a mover for, and a seconder, please, for A, B, C, and D? Councillor Bell, Councillor Kentner. All in favor? And that is carried. And Councillor Bartley, will you move CEO 2021-23?
I do.
And a seconder, please, Councillor Vickers. Okay, if you wish to speak to this.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And actually, I have 2 issues with E. One, every municipality in Grey County, if not Ontario, does the same thing. They go out for a market review. They each get a different consultant and they come up with different figures. I have no idea why, as a Grey County or a bunch of municipalities, cannot on the next one work together and hire one consultant and get all the same figures. I know that positions are different, but we're all spending a ton of money to get the same answer. And I do believe that it should come back, you know, and be more cohesive to the rest of the municipalities. Number 2, query is 2 or 3 of the local municipalities did get information back, did have a closed meeting, and had paperwork to back up the request for a salary increase. We cannot get that paperwork, and in business myself, I would never pay a bill or give an increase without backup paperwork. So for that, I don't want to hold it up for the 2022 budget process, but I'd really like to get some paperwork back up on this. Is that possible?
Rob?
Through your worship,
you.
I'll let Sean speak to some of the things, but one of the things I will add, and it's going to the first part, is that there's been a realization that all municipalities go through this process, and there should be a coordinated approach. And I'm happy to report that I think it's the Ontario Municipal Administrators Association is building a database. So all that information will be there so that actually municipalities can just pull their own information and do it themselves. And it's on the go for it. It's not done yet. It's next year, it'll be in place. But I think that's been a realization across the province that we should be able to do this. So I just wanted to report on that, and I'll maybe let Sean speak to the other things,
Got
if
it.
that's okay.
Thank you, Rob. Over to you, Sean.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Councillor Bartley, I actually totally agree. That was the first thing I asked is why do we do this individually? Because for that exact reason. So Rob addressed that already. It is something that should be more streamlined. It can't be province-wide because Toronto, City of Toronto is very different than up here, but
For sure.
it should be done in a way that we could, everybody's paying with the same $30,000. So to the second part, I believe Rob provided a little bit of more detailed information to you from the consultant that broke down every position, how many comparables there were, what that rate to that job was. So for example, CAO, if I'm remembering off the top of my head, we had 17 comparables. There was a lot, or we had the full complement of comparables because every municipality has a CAO basically. And then she breaks down all that information, gave us the P50, which is the 50th percentile rate, the P60, which is the 60th percentile rate. And that led us to build the salary sheet. Marianne built it for us, the pay grid. The reason why we don't come to council with all of the raw data is because that's why we hired the consultant in the first place. So she literally went through, we paid her very handsomely. We went through, she goes through thousands of lines of data to pull together that report. And in order to present that information to you, I would then have to do the exact same thing that she did, look at all the raw data, pull it all together, make sure it's in a way that makes sense, because the CAO has 17 comparables. The manager of strategic initiatives has 2 comparables because that's not a common position. So that's why when we go out and we bring in a consultant to do it, we trust them that they're doing the work appropriately. And that's the end result is what's presented to you.
Thank you. Just to follow up, if I may.
Please go ahead.
I certainly appreciate that, and I half understand that. Just I've got in my possession reports from other years that show all the comparators and different ones from other consultants. The other municipalities did get a report that it seen most of the raw data put into a chart form. I just have a hard time accepting something on, you hired somebody, paid them a lot of money and said, yeah, this is the outcome, but without any data. That's not what the other municipalities get. And I've got some of them materials.
I don't, through
Go ahead,
your
please.
chair. I think every municipality is different. So some may have gotten more raw data. Our scope of work with Marianne, when the question was first presented a few weeks ago, and I said, this is a question that's coming up, what do we have that we can bring forward? Her response was, that's not in the scope of work. So what we paid her to do, she has provided us what we got through the scope of work from her. So if we want more, and if she has more data, and if we want to go into closed session, we would have to have specific requests, I think. Because, sorry, I'm a little bit stuffed up. That's what's going on with my voice. But with the request of what we asked her to do, she's provided that to us.
And thank you. I wouldn't accept that report if it was me personally. Thank you.
Anything further? Councillor Vickers, Councillor Greenfield, sorry. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks, Sean and Rob. Following up on Councillor Bartley's comments, Councillor Vickers and I recently were exposed to this through Grace Auble Conservation. And if you think comparing 444 municipalities is difficult, comparing 36 is actually harder, because some of the conservation authorities, especially that involve Toronto or Brampton, I mean, their assessment is gazillions of dollars, and then you come to figure out what would be the best allowance for workers in Grace Auble, a small rural conservation authority, and it doesn't seem to matter what organization you're dealing with. They seem to basically use the same practice and the same type of comparators and, the CAO and the forestry manager and so on and so forth. So I guess I've adopted it as over the years as maybe not my preference in evaluating, but this is the way it seems to be done. And I guess we have to put our eggs in somebody's basket. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vickers?
Yeah, no, I just seconded it to get it on the table. I don't
Okay,
have a question.
fine.
Thank you, Your Worship.
That's great. All right, anything further from council? And I will call the question. All in favor of this report going forward, going ahead? And any against? Thank you. 6-1, carried. Moving on to 9.2, A, CAO 2021-24 is the CIP grant. And the recommendation reads that the Council of the Municipality of Meaford approve a grant in the amount of $7,500 for 92 Sykes Street North in accordance with the Downtown Community Improvement Plan. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that, please? Deputy Mayor and Councillor Kent, thank you. And any questions, comments coming for this? Councillor Bartley?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So obviously there is money left in the account to award this, Rob, or can you tell us where we're sitting?
Through your worship, this is actually our first award this year, so we've barely spent any, so a lot of it will be put into reserves. We do have a number of applications right now that people want to proceed with. They just not in a point to actually have the funding available. So money will be put into reserves and then that'll add to the funding for next year.
Thank you, sir.
So Rob, there really isn't an application period for the CIP. Is that right? They come in at odd times or whenever they're ready?
Typically, we will do a call in the spring for applications to be
Right.
filed. And if we don't award all the funding, we leave it open for applications to come in through the year. This application was one that the individual had the sign pull the brick away from the building and got into some major masonry work. So we're happy to provide that. But that's our normal process.
Thank you. Anything further from council? And I'll call a question. All in favor? And that is carried. Excuse me. B is the bylaw 2021-93, the interim tax levy. Recommendation reads, be it resolved that bylaw 2021-93, the bylaw to provide for 2022 interim tax levy and to provide for the payment of taxes, and that be taken as read a first, second, and third term and finally passed. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Greenfield, Councillor Bell. Any comments, questions from council? All in favor? No, just carried. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please, to move into committee of the whole? Deputy Mayor and Councillor Vickers, thank you. At 3:15. All in favor, moving into committee of the whole? That's carried. First off, the Hub Community Services COM 2021-28 is the elections recount policy, which reads, the committee of the whole recommend council of the municipality of Meaford enact a bylaw to adopt a municipal election recount policy. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Greenfield, Councillor Kentner. Any comments, questions for Matt on this one? Seeing none, fairly straightforward. Matt, thank you. All in favor? And that is carried. So moving into our memos, favorite one of late is a building report for November 2021. Pardon? Councillor Greenfield, sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I'm once again honored to comment on this report. So it will not be the last 2021 building report. We've got one more to go, and I'm very optimistic that that magical $100 million in permit fees is going to be arrived at. There's still quite a bit of construction going on. I know one fairly new project just down the road from our place. I'm not sure if it would be on, likely be on this permit report. Maybe not until December's report. But we are just under $98 million, which is a phenomenal amount of money. And I just want to mention that going back to the budget, and we noticed in the budget that we were going to be in need of another building inspector and maybe another vehicle. All we have to do is look at these numbers. They are over double what we have been traditionally. So when it comes to adding a building official to our staff, as I say, here's the argument. We're doing the business. We need people in place to look after what's happening. Thank you.
True. Thank you for that. Okay, we'll move on to our updates, and we'll ask you to go ahead, Deputy Mayor, please, for County Council.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Grey County Council met on December the 9th at the call of Warden Selwyn Hicks, who is now entering his third term as Grey County's warden. An election was held on Tuesday, December the 7th, where Christine Robinson, Mayor of West Grey, ran against the incumbent. Christine has 32 years in municipal administration in many roles, including being a CAO. I seconded her nomination because I felt strongly that change was in order for Grey, and that another member of council should be able to experience the role of warden should they so desire and should they receive the support of their peers. Mayor Klumpus spoke on behalf of Selwyn Hicks. She believes continuity for the final year of this term was important. The vote was a tie, 9-9. In a nail-biting moment, the two names were placed in a box. CAO Kim Wingrove made the draw and Selwyn won. Council had the privilege of meeting our new local immigration partnership coordinator. 55 partners have come together to support newcomers to Grey. We heard from Dave Shorey, the new executive director of Georgian College in Owen Sound, who is thrilled with the $1 million donation from Grey Council to support the full 4-year nursing program. Dr. Ara spoke. I asked about the possibility of vaccines for children under 5 years of age. He responded that this is being explored as we speak. Potentially, we could hear more in relation to this age group in a couple of months. And as we all know, there are several new cases of Omicron variant in Grey County presently. I think I read this morning 19. There was considerable discussion resulting from the Healthcare Funding Task Force report. The task force is attempting to create some policy parameters to assist council with decisions when funds are requested. Currently, the policy states that funds are only donated for equipment and construction purposes at hospital facilities when the clientele are predominantly residents of Grey County. We recognize that some of our residents utilize the services of Markdale and Collingwood hospitals, so perhaps we should be supporting them on a prorated basis as well. Healthcare really is the purview of the province, but more and more municipalities are having to invest to make sure our residents are well served. Currently, 27.4% or $17 million of the county budget goes to healthcare. Committee appointments were reviewed. I will remain on the Affordable Housing Task Force, the Agricultural Advisory Committee, and the Economic Development Advisory Committee. Mayor Klumpus will continue as a member of the Long-Term Care Committee of Management. Council heard from our HR department. They will be requesting 2 additional staff during the budget process to assist with the management of 1,011 county employees. Staffing accounts for 38% of the county budget. There have been 287 hires so far in 2021, 218 terminations, and currently 168 employees are on various types of leaves. During the 22 budget overview, we heard that new assessment is factored in, and we are looking at a proposed 3.75% tax levy increase at the county level. 1% of the county budget as presented is $622,700. The 3.75 increase is inclusive of 1.21% of own source revenue for asset management, 1% for affordable housing, and 0.75% for future healthcare capital and equipment projects. This is an increase from 0.5%. The total operating and capital budgeted expenditures proposed for 2022 are $185,235,700. The full budget will be available on the county website January the 7th and will be presented to council on January the 28th. And over to you, your worship, if I've missed
Thank you.
anything.
No, that's very thorough as always. Thank you. And Heritage Advisory.
Yes.
Yes, Councillor Kentner, you're going to
Yes,
tackle that one?
I have just a very short off-the-cuff report. The Heritage Advisory Committee met on December the 1st, and we were very excited to see an amazing plan to restore the Stedman store on the main street of Meaford. They want to preserve the facade of the building, which is, spectacular. They have amazing plans for the end of the building, which will be facing the water. I think it's in really good hands in as much as the store is actually open this Christmas season with a nice window display and vendors inside. And the committee, I just think, was very impressed with the presentation from his architects. And there are, just like any major project, there are a few potential stumbling blocks, one of them being parking. But I think, and perhaps Councillor Greenfield may like to comment as well, we were very excited to see a plan like this for downtown Meaford. It will play a really important role. And it's also just a great example for other developers of the fact that our heritage buildings can be restored and can be brought into the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. And are you okay with that, Councillor? No, good.
Yeah, yes, it's very creative presentation.
Yeah.
Probably very, very interesting.
Very interesting. Economic development, over to you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, your worship. Our Economic Development Advisory Committee met last week. Janet Sperling is with us, our Manager of Strategic Initiatives, and Janet presented the communication strategy draft to the committee, and there was considerable discussion on the strategy, which will be presented to council in January. I don't want to steal any of Janet's thunder for that report, but as I think you can imagine, the focus will be primarily on social media and our website. We also discussed as a committee potential items for a work plan for us going forward. We will continue to be actively involved in the OP public engagement process as that unfolds. As well, we talked about looking at KPIs, key performance indicators specific to businesses, the economic impacts of growth, in particular from TC Energy, should that project go forward. And we'll also look at the business mix analysis that Grey County staff will be undertaking shortly in Meaford this spring. We'll do our own analysis of that and see if we can help determine some gaps in our business community. But overall, what we really hope to accomplish is creating a groundwork for the next EDAC committee following the election, because we realize that time is running out. We just have a few more meetings, and we really want the next committee to be able to hit the ground running. So we have a very, very dedicated and ambitious group around the table, and we think if we can tackle some of the things I've mentioned and lay that groundwork, the next committee will be in really good shape. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak on this moment? Councillor Bell, if I may, and don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm just wondering about the BIA and if they have entertained coming up, I guess, given the comments at council today about the state of decorations and things in the downtown area, if there might be some contribution or some partnership there in terms of funding for beautifying the downtown area. This is something that that might be entertained through the BIA.
Well, Madam Mayor, I usually have something to say about most things, and on this one, I really can't make a comment. You've caught me.
Well, then I apologize for catching you off guard. It just suddenly occurred to me
But
as we were talking.
I can definitely talk to them when we get to the BIA that's coming up, so. yeah.
Perfect.
Speechless.
Thank you.
Worship.
Councillor Vickers.
I don't have a comment through you. I don't have a comment about the BIA thing. I do have a comment about the heritage report. Am I allowed to?
Yes, please ask a question.
So the parking part of the element of this project, I'm very curious how we as a municipality are going to help solve what seems to be somewhat of a major problem with the parking, since this development doesn't have any parking at all and obviously needs parking. I'm looking forward to seeing the creative ways that that planning is going to work around this.
Rob?
Yeah, that is the biggest issue that we're currently working with, not only this individual, but the adjacent developer and also the owner of the Mercantile building, who had paid for some cash in lieu of parking. So I think the key thing is everybody's working together to try to figure this out, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Okay. Sorry, Rob?
Through your worship, if I can just add one item to that.
Please do.
Given where that application is in the process, we're not at a stage where we can kind of get into the details from the planning end of things, right? So if I can use the terminology loosely, there's kind of negotiations happening with the municipality, right? Which is quite typical, where businesses ask where our perspectives are, right? So there's nothing hard and fast in terms of that, but I will say, as a department, as a municipality, we're always open to looking at the current best practice for parking. I think we understand that the way parking is addressed in municipalities, we need to be more creative. It's not the way we would have looked at it decades ago, where you're in some cases clearing buildings just to provide more parking. It's not the way to go. And so we're always looking at how can we have something that we're treating, particularly our downtown, what you might hear in terms of referring to it as park once strategies and things like that, where we look at the entire district, not always just as an applicant or one development moving forward. So always looking for those creative solutions.
Answer.
No, I'm interested in looking forward to hearing more about it. So I'm glad I like the answers and the talk that I've heard so far. So thank you very much.
Okay, can I have a mover and a seconder, please, to move out of committee of the whole? Councillor Bell, Deputy Mayor, thank you. All in favor? And that is carried. And on to councillor motions. Are there any notices of motion coming forward? And I see none. So we'll move on to the one for decision, and it is put forward by Deputy Mayor Keaveney regarding Meaford Community Gardens. I'm assuming that you will move that, Deputy Mayor?
I will, your worship.
And could I have a second, please? Councillor Bell. All right, over to you. Did you want to speak to that?
Certainly, thank you, your worship. Council will recall that Simona Fabrigura presented at our last council meeting on behalf of Transition Meaford with a request from that group to ask council and staff to support her in finding a new location for the community garden that's been currently located at GBCS. We know that building is for sale, so the garden is in need of a new home tout suite. So I'm hoping that council will support this motion and allow staff to go forward and work with Simona and Transition Meaford to solve that problem.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Kentner,
Did you need a seconder?
we have a
Oh,
seconder.
good. Okay,
Did you
sorry.
wish to speak to it?
No,
No?
I'm
All
in favor.
right. Counselor Greenfield.
Just a question, your worship. I'm not sure if Deputy Mayor Keaveney can answer this or not, but are we looking at something the same size as what was at the school, like the same square footage, or do you know if they want something, a bigger footprint or smaller, or?
Larger would
Has
be
that been
ideal
discussed?
through
Yeah.
your worship. And I don't know whether Mr. Armstrong wishes to speak to anything at this point in time, or we'll just wait for a staff report.
Through your worship, I think wait for the staff report because we're still under investigation on potential opportunities. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, oh, sorry, Counselor Bell, and then Counselor Bartley.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. So this is a good thing to do, and I can fully support this initiative. It goes along with our community well-being with people, get them out, get them working. And I remember the last time Deputy Mayor, you mentioned about people getting to work with the soil with their hands to be involved with that. I also want to reflect on a really positive way when we had my first term on council, we had a younger person, Councillor Calvert. And Jaden was always very much involved with things for the community and doing things exactly like this. So if former Councillor Calvert is ever watching this, I think that he would be very pleased that we would move forward in something like this. So anyway, this is the right thing to do. So thank you.
Counselor Bartley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I echo Councillor Bell's sentiments exactly. I was just curious on this new piece of land that the municipality just got, 116 William Street. Is there any flat land on there we could use for a community garden?
Your worship, that might be one of the properties we're currently reviewing with them.
Go figure. I just want to add, I remember working or visiting with Simone when she was introducing some young, really young potential new farmers, at least kids who were wanting to get their hands dirty in the dirt at Victoria Village. And it was such a delight to see these kids pulling up the carrots that they had grown. It really is an experience, and she's just a great person to take that project on. So absolutely agree that this is a wonderful thing to do. Anything further? Then I'll call a question. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. And thanks for bringing that forward, Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you.
So let's move on to adoption of the minutes. Planning public meeting, November 22nd, 2021. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Greenfield, Councillor Bell. Any comment on those? All in favor? And that is carried. And council meeting of November 29th. I'm moving a seconder, Councillor Bartley, Deputy Mayor, thank you. Any comments, questions on that? All in favor? That is carried. And then on to communications. Are there any points on that, A, B, C, or D, to pull from communications for further discussion?
Town of Blue Mountains is
Being none.
Yeah. I don't have A, B, or C, but I do have another one I would like to.
Another one under D?
No, yeah, is that, okay, sorry, I got ahead of myself.
Okay. Please go ahead.
Oh, D, so there was actually a few that I had, when I was looking over the correspondence. Some of them had to do with infrastructure, but with the announcement of the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund doubling here just a few days ago, I didn't think it was proper to be asking for more. I wondered if a thank you note going to the government would be appropriate as much as anything from the municipality of Meaford. And I'm sure you've probably maybe already have it done, your worship, but it's just a suggestion. But number 14, the Georgina, it's a letter as much as anything, Matt. If you can help me out, it's a little bit different because it's really just a communication towards the people in the ministry about, and it's about plastic bale wrap. also plastic boat wrap. And since we do have a fair bit of boating and agriculture in our area, I wondered if maybe we wouldn't be able to throw our support about this. I have more questions than I do answers about the recycling of this of the plastic. Although the one thing I do know, I feel it is important, and the numbers that they reflect in the letter about how much is just either taken to the landfill site or actually burned is a little concerning to myself. This almost can go back into the motion that I put forward to the county about waste management. It all kind of ties together, and I guess I'll keep beating the drum as long as I can to keep it in front of council and the public view. So would it be proper just to endorse this letter, Your Worship, or the clerk?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, council could absolutely do that. Yes, normally there would come in the form of a resolution, but by the look of this letter, this came through their committees, so I think there perhaps wasn't quite the same sort of council resolution. But yeah, if council wanted to pass a motion to say that they endorse the request in the letter from Georgina dated November 29th about agricultural bale wrap and twine and boat shrink wrap, then I think that would work, and we would send the appropriate letters.
And they would just go to the people that Georgina had sent the
They
letters.
would go to Georgina and to the addresses.
Okay, so if I could put forward that I would appreciate it.
Okay.
If anybody has any questions about the bale wrap and stuff, I try and answer them. But
I recall in previous council that we did have a baling, recycled our agricultural baling.
Yeah, through your
Material.
worship, as part of our waste management exercise, we used to collect that for recycling purposes,
Yeah.
but then there was no aftermarket for that product, and we had to move it from recycling to waste.
and
It
if
is
I-
similar to the film waste too, which is, from my perspective, a real shame that we are still, we had to forego on that one because of the cost, but it all ties into that because it goes to the landfill and it doesn't disintegrate. We know that, or it goes into the water, into the lakes and oceans. So yeah, certainly
speak?
support that.
Can I speak to that?
Yes, please.
Because what we were doing before was exactly, we were at the collection point, and we really didn't have an answer of what to do with it to further process it. So I think that's the key to this initiative, is to find places to use it, because it is a resource. One man's garbage is another man's treasure, sort of thing, eh? And I'm sure there's something out there somewhere that it could be done. And I look forward to hopefully the county recognizing the importance of this and making it more of a county effort, instead of one municipality having a landfill site saying, well, we don't want any part of it because we have our dump, and having us as a municipality, Meaford, saying, well, we need something because we don't have a dump. So I think the bigger picture is something further than just dumping and burying our garbage. So again, as long as I'm here, I will take every opportunity to try and further the cause along.
No
Thank you.
kidding. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Councillor Vickles, for bringing that letter forward. And I just wanted to add that this is a discussion that has been and will continue to occur at Transition Meaford, and members of that group are pretty creative, and they are great researchers, and that's how we came to have the styrofoam program. So no guarantees, of course, but hopefully they'll work some of their magic and see if they can come up with any alternative. But I know I've been contacted by farmers who share with me that they're burning the bale wrap, and I thought that's just not a good thing. So anything we can do to try to find an alternative source for that product would be great.
May I speak one more time?
Go ahead.
So in some of it does get burned. I know ourselves, we do recycle it. Unfortunately, the bags used to be $1 a bag that we had to put this plastic in. Then it turned to $3 a bag. The last time I received it was $6 a bag. So, and you don't get a whole lot of plastic back into one of those bags that they sell us for $6. So, some people like ourselves are trying to do our best to recycle it. But it just, there isn't a whole lot of options, and the easiest option sometimes is to kick it to the curb or do the worst. And certainly it's not something that I or the agriculture community can be proud of having to burn it, sort of thing. So again, thank you for your time.
Yeah, as I recall, one of the other issues was in the cleanliness of the bale, the baling material. for recycled purposes. So, but maybe our transition Meaford would accept the challenge to move some research along on that. Thank you for that, Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Vickers, for bringing it up. It was on my docket to pick it up. I read, and I don't have my facts straight here, but there's a plant, I think it's in Illinois, that recycles plastic. And there is a letter out from the Ontario government that they're trying to come up with somebody in Ontario to have an end user of plastic, meaning our grocery bags, any bags. So I think if we're putting a letter out, I think we should add a little codicil to it that in favor of the Ontario government coming up with an end use of this product. That's the key, is you got to have an end use, whether it be sweaters, a polyester sweater. I think it takes 28 grocery bags to make a polyester sweater, but there has to be an end user. And I think if we're putting a letter out, we should have a codicil supporting the government to get an end user in Ontario.
Well, good discussion, everyone. Thank you. So you had do we need a motion for that? Yes, we've had it moved and seconded. All in favor? And that is carried. Thanks for bringing that forward, Councillor Vickers. And at this point, we need to go into closed session. That be it resolved, the council goes into closed session with the CAO with delegated authority from the clerk to discuss and evaluate the performance of the CAO. I have a mover and a seconder, please, to put that on the table. Councillor Bell, Councillor Bartley. And we will need a 15-minute break. 10?
Yes, just about 15 minutes to get ourselves packed up and then you'll be ready to go.
Okay, so we will recess until 4 o'clock. Sorry. Must be dinner time. Okay, we have just come out of closed session, and I want to report out that council went in with the CAO with delegated authority from the clerk to discuss and evaluate the performance of the CAO. And so now we'll move on to a confirming bylaw, which is a bylaw 2021-94 to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Municipality of Meaford at its regular meeting held in the month of December 2021, that it be taken as read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that, please? Councillor Bell, Councillor Bartley, all in favor? And that is carried. And that brings us to the end of our prepared agenda. And I just want to wish everyone a very, very happy holiday, a safe holiday, and a Merry Christmas, or however you celebrate the holidays. It is going to be a nice break for us all, and we all deserve it. So times with family and friends, and stay well, everyone. Merry
Thank you.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas. to you.
Merry
Happy
Christmas.
Everybody here.
Yeah, everybody.
Yes, next.